I cannot praise this show enough. A Tale Dark and Grim. Finally, we have a TV series that tells fairy stories the way they're meant to be told. This is a Netflix TV series, or at least it's on Netflix, that was released earlier this year. And I'm only discussing the first episode because that's all I've seen. This is my initial opinion. And I will just say, but I'm not going to withhold this verdict until the end. I will say right now, I will continue watching it. The first episode is called Chapter the First, Hansel and Gretel. Now, interestingly, I thought it would look at different fables and fairy stories, but from what I can see, Hansel and Gretel are basically in every episode in this first season, so I'm not sure if the plan going forward is to focus on a different story and then expand that character's universe when the next seasons happen. But certainly I hope there will be another season. But Hansel and Gretel starts off with this one episode that tells us their origin story. Now, there are certain aspects in this that I'm aware of, that I've heard being told in other stories, but I'm not 100% sure how much this speaks to the original story of Hansel and Gretel. I feel like there are probably some creative liberties taken again, but if anybody knows specifically, please let me know where that lies. But this is fantastic. This first episode, we see Hansel and Gretel running away from their parents because their parents, or their father, cuts off their heads and then stitches their heads back on. And we have this beautiful imagery of the stitching around the necks holding their heads on. And it's very strong thread, because they're able to carry on as normal once they wake up, realize what has happened, and they flee. And they're fleeing because they're trying to find a new family, a new home, somebody who is going to love them the way they believe their parents used to. And of course, in doing so, they come across the woman who owns the gingerbread house. And I won't say what happens after that, just in case you're not familiar with the story of Hansel and Gretel. But assuming you are familiar, it's pretty standard what happens after that. It's a pretty interesting tale that basically says if you eat too much junk food, because it's all basically cakes and unhealthy bakery goods, you won't be able to run away when somebody tries to eat you. But will they get away? What happens next? Well, since I've already said that the rest of the season seems to follow their story, you can come to your own conclusion. It's fabulous. The animation style is beautiful. It's absolutely exquisite. The way the story is told, I think, is fantastic. It's very easy to follow, so if you weren't familiar with the story, I think you'd be able to cope quite well with understanding what's going on with it. I cannot fault it. That may change as it progresses. This is obviously me reviewing a story that I'm very familiar with, whereas once we get to chapter the second and chapter the third, and we enter territory that I'm not aware of, my opinion may differ, and I may find that the narrative maybe isn't as good, or the characters are dragging. I don't know. Hopefully that's not the case. But if you do have an opinion on the other episodes, please let me know. I'd love to hear what you think. But this is beautiful. Hansel is voiced by Andre Robinson, Gretel by Raini Rodriguez. So great voice cast as well. I honestly can't fault it. I'm very excited to see what A Tale Dark and Grim has in store going forward, both with this season and hopefully a season after it. Beautiful animation, really engaging narrative style. I can't fault it. If you get a chance to check it out on Netflix, definitely do. I think regardless of whether you're generally a fan of animations, I think this is one that you will really enjoy.